I was going to ask if you want me to make a sound.
Sure, make a sound. Are you not making sounds right now?
I just right now. I'm making a sound right now.
Okay.
I'm done. I'm done with my sound. I'm done. What is going on?
I don't know, but you have totally lost it.
I don't know what's going on. I have no idea what's going on. Oh, okay. I hope we still have a listener or two.
This is Barely Furcasting, featuring Taebyn and Injured Nerves audio production. Oh, well, hello, and welcome to our podcast. I am Barely Normal, and
hello. My name is. What am I even doing? I don't even know what's going on right now, but I do know that my name is Taebyn, and I'm a pub bark. And thank you, all you furs, for joining us on this momentous occasion. Why? Ask me why it's momentous, Barely.
Why is it barely momentous?
It's definitely barely momentous.
Yes.
Because it's not. It's just another week that we're doing. So thank you for joining us on this week or something.
Well, I'm very excited about our podcast today because we have a super guest later on, Ronnie Noodles.
Yes.
And he is an awesome fur. And of course, today is the 23rd of January, and we are 3 days into the new presidency of Joe Biden. And I would like to give him his congratulations on his first 3 days. Congratulations, Joe. If you're listening, Joe, why?
Yeah. Well, I know I be biting my nails about that.
Okay. Yeah, okay. And of course, we had our live podcast last week at FC 2021.
Yes, I WEG.
That went over well. That was a very fun time. I spent some time in the dealer's den. I spent some time in other panels. I went to the Jackbox panel with Lux. She hosted the Jackbox panel shortly after our panel in the very same room. So it was very exciting for her to be on our podcast with us and then to go play games with her later on that evening. That was kind of fun. Listened to a lot of the music. I didn't dance. I listened, but I didn't dance, much like I do when I go to a real live pod, or a real live con. I just walk around and listen to the music. And normally I'm videoing you, but
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's my fault. I keep making you video me like, no, here, me, no, here. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, let's get right into some useful things. You say you have a useful trick. Why don't you tell me your useful trick?
So let me say what I read about. I'll just read you the thing, and then you'll, of course, know what that useful trick is.
You read something?
I read something. I didn't green it, and I
blew
didn't
it.
brown or blew it. Well, that's what I usually do whenever I try and do things.
Okay.
But so this is so there's this guy and his wife, and he says, my wife and I are sitting on the couch watching TV, and I hear a text message. Realizing that I left my phone in the kitchen, I get up, go to the kitchen to check it. And it's a text from my wife saying, please bring the chips on your way back. So that's a useful trick. Very useful trick.
That's a very useful trick. All right. I want to go into a little bit before we go into some other stuff, but I want to do some follow-up to our previous pods. And one of the ones was last week we talked about tarot because Tatsu came on and talked about the tarot sequence books. And that brought up the tarot cards. And somebody asked, either you or Tatsu said, how many cards are in a tarot deck? And I said, I think there's like a standard deck of cards. So afterwards, I went down and dug through my stuff, and I have 2 tarot decks, by the way.
Okay.
And I thought, I will find out how many cards are in there. So I opened up one deck and I counted them. And there are 78 cards in there.
78. Okay. Good to know.
Right. Now, I could have done a lot easier by reading on the back of the box where it says this 78 card deck.
Well, but you got your counting practice in, I guess.
I did get my counting practice in. And so I was like, so I wonder if the other deck is 78. And before I took it out to count, I read on the back and it said, I did. I said, I wonder if it says on the back. And yes, it does.
Okay.
So a little history about tarot. This is going to be barely history right now. Nice. Before we get into some other things. But the tarot deck, if anybody is interested, and if you're not, you can fast forward through this to our next segment.
Yeah, and it has an interesting history, actually, too. It didn't start out as tarot as it is today. Is that right, Barely?
It did not start out as divination. It started out as a game. and there was it started out. It was also known as Triomphi, and later as Terochi or Tarok. And there's, like I
Interesting.
said, there's 18 or set 18. There are 78 cards, and it's from the mid 15th century in various parts of Europe. And they used to play games called Tarocchini, French Tarot, and I'm going to mess this word up, but Austrian Königgruppen. So
There you go.
many of which are still played today. In the late 18th century, some tarot decks began to be used for divination. That's a big word, and what that means is telling the future and stuff like that. And cartomancy. Now,
Cartomancy.
carto just means script or writing, and cartography is like maps and stuff like that. But they would
Hmm,
do
hmm.
that stuff, and that led to custom decks for occult purposes. Now, in today's world of occult, when somebody says something is occult, we automatically think Satanist or bad. But
Hmm.
occult in the 18th century simply meant out of the norm.
Like the furry fandom.
Like the furry fandom would be an occult fandom
Hmm.
in the original use of the word. So anyway, so like playing common playing cards, there's four suits that vary by region, and there are 14 cards in a suit, very similar to our standard poker deck, but there are 10 pip cards numbering
Are
from one
are they pip
pip.
or pup cards? Can I have some pup cards? I want
We could have
14
pup
pup cards.
cards. We could have
Okay,
a
good, good.
tarot pup cards. Ooh,
Tarot
there's a
pup
good
cards.
thing we could make.
I like
Hmm.
this. I like this.
Yeah,
New
we could
merch on the way.
new merch on the way. 78 pictures of Taebyn.
That might be a little too much, but okay. No, it makes sense though.
Well, the hanged Taebyn would be really kind of rough to prose. But anyway, maybe we can get
Yeah.
the artist to draw this. Ooh, Kois. Kois, your next task is to draw 78 tarot cards of Taebyn.
There you go. The Taven Tarot pup cards. There
The
you
tarot pup
go.
cards. Yes. But anyway, so there's a king and a queen and a knight and a jack or a knave. So like our current cards are a poker deck, you have a king and a queen and a jack, but they also had a knight, so they added another one. And then there's a single card known as the fool, which would be kind of hard for Tabin too, because that's kind of what you are most of the time is the fool, right?
Yeah, so maybe Kois will be drawing 78 like fool Joker cards
Yes,
or
right.
something.
Right. And the fool acts as the top card or the trump card to avoid following a suit the way you play the game.
Oh,
So
really? So it's not I thought it was gonna end up being the Joker card, but no, it's actually like a high ranking card.
right, yeah, but there's only
Oh.
one in the entire deck, that's why.
Ah,
So
okay.
in English-speaking countries, their games aren't played frequently anymore, and they're primarily used for novelty or divinatory purposes, specialized packs, and, there's different cards that esoteric links to each ancient Egyptian, Kabbalah, Indian Tantra, and the I Ching. So, there's lots of folks that, have different ties to that kind of stuff.
And there you go. Lots of stuff I did not know, and
Mhm.
it's not tarot, but that just, of course, makes me think. Do you know where the Joker card? Because there's two in a pack, the Joker cards
Right, of a poker deck.
of a poker
Mhm.
deck. Do you know where those came from?
I do not, but now we have to research that out.
Now,
Thank you.
I was just thinking as soon as I say that because I don't know either, and so now we have a research for next.
So next week, pay attention, and we will talk about the Joker
Joker
cards
card.
in a 52 deck card playing poker deck, which is actually then a 54 card deck, isn't it?
A normal deck is 52, right? I'm thinking Pinochle. Pinochle has a different amount. Okay,
Different
they
amount,
both
yeah, because
start
they
with
only
P,
use
so I don't know.
they only use 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King. They don't
King,
use the
queen, they
other
don't. Yeah,
cards.
and five.
And five, there's a five in a Pinochle deck.
Yeah, because you need to make 15.
Maybe I should learn how to play Pinochle.
Oh, no, my hubby just reminded me of what's going on. So, no, there's no 5, but what happened once. So, fun story. So, every year we have a trip to, this wonderful, we call it the magical happy place, and it's this wonderful place on a nice big river and, lots of room for this pup to run around and stuff, and we, habitually bring our Pinochle deck because we like playing Pinochle. And, they have a special deck of cards for Pinochle, as you were
Mhm.
just talking about. And one year we brought accidentally, of course, a normal deck of playing cards. And so we
Mhm.
sit down and we're playing Pinochle with a normal deck of playing cards. And it's like, wow, we are getting like high things all the time. Look at all these 15s all over the place. And we had like 529s or something. And it's like, this is crazy. And then, it'd been a year since we played last. And so we're realizing, wait a minute, There's a 5, there's a 1, there's a 2, there's like every single number. Yeah, I guess there's a reason we're doing so well this year.
There you go.
We learned, so for all you furs, if you want to properly play Pinochle, use an actual Pinochle deck, not a regular deck of playing cards.
All right, there you go. That good advice for anyone playing Pinochle. It's coming up to the 5-minute furs for fun time. So I'm going to go ahead and post the link, and then I will talk about our next follow up while we're waiting for somebody to come in. Okay, so my second follow up was from several weeks ago. Remember when we were talking about Star Trek: The Next Generation, and we talked about the goldfish?
The gold in Jean-Luc's Jean-Luc's Picard, his
Jean-Luc
ready room.
Picard, his ready room, and I said it was a goldfish. Well, I love our fans and our staff because they fact checked me, and they told me it was not a goldfish, it was a lionfish.
I like you. So you were lying about it this whole time.
I don't know why the fish didn't tell the truth, but it was a lionfish.
Lionfish, yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
and apparently it had a name, and it was called Livingston, and it was
Oh,
one of several throughout the series because the staff would often cook Livingston
okay. Why?
or
Okay.
Livingston. Well, they had very bright lights in there
Oh, okay.
for the cameras to pick up, and, they would only turn it on during the shooting of the scenes, and there were several weeks where they would wrap up for the week, and they would forget to turn the light off, and when they came back, they had boiled fish.
Oh, that's no good. So if like they actually remembered to turn the lights off and they came back the next day to, set everything up for the show and there was an actual live fish in the bowl, did they always greet it with Mr. Livingston, I presume?
I imagine so. We'll have to have our
I
staff
mean,
fact
how
check
could they
that out
resist
for us.
that?
How could right? I would totally do that, and, we would be the guys that would be like, "Oh, please don't say it again. Please don't. Oh, he said it
Yes,
again."
but we said it again. See, oh, we know each other way too well.
Yes. All right, so I want to move along to you have an animal fact.
Oh, yes, and so shout out to Rain Raccoon on our staff for that wonderful piece of trivia we now know.
That's right. He gave me a Star Trek trivia geek moment.
Geek Mint.
A geek mint, is that like a lifesaver or a cert or what is that?
A, a geek mint. I
Yes.
see. I just got it. It took a second. So yeah, so I have an animal fact I found out that's very interesting recently. Falcons, very, very awesome birds. And I found out that in the wild, I mean, I don't know, do people ever domesticate falcons? I mean, do they actually keep them as pets? I don't think they do.
Yes. Have you never
Oh,
heard
they
of
do.
falconer?
Oh, no, I haven't. Okay, so I actually just learned another thing about falcons.
They breed them as hunting birds.
Oh, no, maybe I did know that. Okay, okay.
Yeah, little
So
hoods on their heads, little tiny leather hoods.
it's adorable. Yes.
Right, right, with little feathers on top. It's like, I don't know whose feather they put on the top of the hood, but,
But they
that seems
find one.
kinda that'd be kinda like us wearing a hood with somebody's hand on top of it, It's like
Yeah, when you put it that way, it's maybe not right exactly. It's not good.
yeah,
Um, so I
anyway,
don't know.
moving along.
Moving along. So I don't know about domesticated falcons, but I found out that in the wild anyway, falcons live to be about 13 years old-ish. To put this in perspective,
Mhm.
that means that falcons that are alive today were born in the 21st century. And so you might say that they are millennial falcons.
Oh.
I'm a little bit of a pup right there. I don't know.
Oh my. My.
But there
Okay,
was a lot of truth in what was just said, too.
that's true. They would be millennial falcons, yes. Okay. Well, let's ladies and furs and listeners, I just wanna point out, we have what we call show notes that we work off of when we're recording this. And Taebyn writes in the show notes things that seem innocuous to me. It's like he put down animal fact. Now, I should know whenever he writes down these things, it's going to turn into a joke.
Well, yeah,
But
but
sometimes it doesn't.
sometimes, like the other fact, the other trick I had, that's actually could be a good trick. So
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Well, again, nobody wrote to us, so we have no mailbag to read,
no
but
bail bag.
no mailbag. All right, so let's move along to media.
Nerdy. I
Yes,
needed to get that out. So thank you.
you needed to get that out in the open for people to hear.
And now we have no
So
more listeners.
right, yeah, there's like, "Why is he taking so long to say the word media?" But anyway, I did a survey on Twitter, my very first survey, by the way. I've never put a
Oh,
survey on Twitter before.
did you enjoy it? Was it fun?
It was riveting. I mean, I got to give
You got
4
results. You got
I got
percentages.
results, I got percentages, and it was fun and exciting.
Yes.
So I was wondering where people listen to our podcast.
That's
Where do you listen to it?
interesting because there's several different things you could do. Like you could be walking out, you could just be trying to relax or something.
Right, right. You could be driving your car, you could be
Right.
riding your motorcycle, you could
You could
be
be
on a
driving your scuba do cushion
Ski-Doo.
machine.
Yes, you could be
Yep.
on a Ski-Doo, you could be skydiving. Who knows where you're
Who
listening to
knows?
our podcast?
You could be doing laundry with your favorite, not just doing laundry, but with your favorite rutabaga plant with a pineapple that barks at the moonlight. And that would
Hmm.
be the best time, I would think. Was that one of your poll options?
It was not,
Oh, okay,
but
okay.
I could put that in the next time,
Okay.
and again, shout out to Kois, I now want a drawing of a barking pineapple. So,
Okay. So, bar
uh,
Kois, you've got your work cut out for you,
you
let
have
me tell
got
you.
your you got at least 78 drawings of Taebyn, and now you have to have a barking pineapple.
And maybe for extra credit, maybe Taben hugging a barking pineapple.
Hugging a barking pineapple.
That
Hmm.
would be a very Tabenish thing to do, I would think.
It would be. Can hinder fruits bark?
I don't know. Kois, you've got to research this and find. So there's another thing for you. Find out if hinder fruits can bark, and if they can, well, you know what to do.
But anyway, so most listeners just listen at home, which is funny because I don't listen to podcasts at home.
Oh, you don't.
I'm busy working on our podcast or doing work for which I get money to pay the bills.
Unlike what we do here.
Unlike what we do here, yes, this is a labor of love.
It is. So again, I guess that means I have to
Ooh.
say shout out to any of you furs out there that have donated and sponsored us
Yes,
on Patreon and stuff. Like really, it
yes,
means a
very
lot.
much. It does mean a lot. It does mean a lot.
Like you
But
don't really have any idea how much that means.
right, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, but 67% of our listeners listen while they're at home, and then
Oh,
there's an
okay.
even split of 17% each that listen while they're working or are working out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what this what I do is I've told you I'll either listen to the previous the current episode
Mhm,
to see how it turns out. I love seeing how it turns out and everything, the editing and the wonderful sounds that you do and stuff.
mhm.
Or and if I'm done with the current one, I'll go back to a previous one, and I've been working my way through. And I know you said you would never do that, but so when I'm working out on the egg timer, and that's when I'll be listening. So yeah, okay, cool.
Watching TV lately, or media stuff, movies and things like that, we we spent I have to say this, it was funny because we spent a good hour searching for something to watch.
I believe it.
We would pull up the preview, look at it, and go, "Nah."
Yeah, I believe it. I totally it's like
Yeah.
yesterday for lunch, because I watch things during lunch. I was kind of not in the mood for what I had been watching, so I said, okay, I'll just go on Netflix and see if I can find something. There's like nothing I could find that like none of this really makes me feel like I want to watch it right now. So I watched what I had normally been watching, which is fine. But anyway, I know exactly where they're coming from, barely.
So, actually, out of boredom, there's a new show called
The mayor.
The Mayor, and it's got Ted Danson in it.
Oh, cool. Is he
Uh,
dancing in it?
he's not dancing in it, but you do know who Ted Danson is, right?
Yes, he was in Cheers, of course. Shout out
Yes,
to Cheers,
yes.
and of course, the most recent hit that we both have watched. Oh, The Good Place.
The Good Place, yes,
Yep,
yes.
yep. No, love him. He's great. I might have to check that out.
Yeah, he plays a mayor of Los Angeles, that ran for mayor because the old mayor checked out. There was a great scene that the mayor was talking and his aide comes up and says, because he was talking about how 2020 was just totally ransacked everything, and his aide comes,
It's a current date thing. Okay.
yeah, yeah, it's a brand new thing, and his aide comes up and says, so the murder hornets are back, but they're really not murder hornets, they're little tiny North Korean drones. And and he
That's
says,
cute.
that's it, I'm out, I'm done, goodbye.
Oh,
And so Ted Danson runs for mayor, and it's got Holly Hunter in it too, which she's a big movie star.
who's Holly Hunter?
Did you ever see the movie Raising Arizona with Nicolas Cage?
I don't think
No.
so.
Oh, well,
No.
yeah, she's a big movie star.
Well, but good to know about that. I think I'll definitely have to check it out. That sounds really cute. And I mean, sometimes you just have to go where everyone knows your
Name.
Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name.
Well, our 5-minute furs time has passed, so I have taken down the link. So have you been watching anything? I mean, let's move on to what you're watching now. Poor Taebyn.
Okay. Okay. Oh, wow. What a week it's been, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
What have I been watching? I meant to usually I make notes about what I've been watching. I think it was last week. I said that we had finished the current season of Suits, and I lied. It was another one of those. Well, we watched something else. So we watched more Suits. Love the show. So great still. I guess that's all for that. And
There you
I'll
go.
just go research. And then next week, I'll say what we watched both this week and this next week. So
Okay.
that's exciting, I guess. I don't know.
Well, let's go. It is we have promised our listeners. I can say listeners now, can't I? I can, can't I?
I think so. Yeah, let's just say listeners, what live on the edge,
Live on the
Cal.
edge.
I want to make the motion that when we greet people, don't say hi, say MooBarkFluff. I think that's a much more appropriate greeting.
We will put that under consideration. We will
And
take it up with the committee. We will see if a resolution shall pass, and we will take it for a vote on the Senate floor
okay,
after the committee approves the resolution.
okay, this sounds
Okay.
like a good, legitimate practice that we're engaged in right now.
Yes. Yes. Better than a handshake.
Better than a paw shake, MooBarkFluff.
So anyway, so it is classic comedy bit week. Several weeks ago, we talked about a Faulty Towers episode called, I think it was called Communication Breakdown, wasn't it? This episode-
Communication problems was that
Yes.
episode. Yeah.
I used a Brit. I used a bit or a sound bite from that. And so you said we should do that on the show. So why don't you set up this little bit that we're going to do? Tell us all about it.
So, if you first haven't seen Faulty Towers, it's a BBC. John Cleese is a star in it. It's such an amazing. They only made 12 episodes, and it's so amazing. So, this particular episode that we're going to talk about and do a scene from, how many times have you seen this episode, do you think?
I've probably seen this episode, I would have to say, at least a dozen times.
I am going on record legitimately saying, I am serious. I am positive I've seen this episode at least 50 times. I mean, I know people say
Wow.
that just to be like sarcastic or whatever, but like I am serious. I know I have watched this episode at least 50 times. I've probably watched them all at least 50 times, give or take,
Mhm.
but definitely this one is one of my favorites. In this episode, Mr. Faulty, Basil Faulty, he's a hotel owner, and he has a wife, Sybil Faulty. And Sybil is a little strict, I guess we'll say. And he's not supposed to like go gambling or anything, betting on horses or anything. So in this episode, he does bet on a horse and he wins. And that was great and wonderful for him. But, he can't let his wife know because that's just not going to be good for him at all. Manuel is the waiter slash, what would you call Manuel?
Bellhop?
Bellhop. Yeah, he's the
Yeah.
hotel bellhop waiter. He does all this stuff.
Mhm.
And in order to make a bet, he couldn't just go out and flangel him. What does it mean to flangel? I don't know what I was trying to say there, but he can't go out and flangel himself in the town and bet on a horse because his wife is pretty good at figuring everything out that he does. So he gives Manuel, who doesn't speak very good English at all. He's from Barcelona and he's still learning a lot. But so Basil gives Manuel the money to go bet into the town and bet on the horse, and he ends up winning. And so Manuel brings the money back to Basil, and Basil gives them to him and tries to hide it from Sybil and everything. And there's so many hilarious things in the episode. So many hilarious things in the episode. I have to repeat about him hiding it and from Miss Richards, and it's so good. But this bit that we're going to do now, so that's the setup. Sorry, it was a long setup, but I think a lot of it is important.
Mhm.
What we're going to do right now is Barely's going to play Mr. Faulty, Basil Faulty, and I'm going to play Manuel. And the accent is going to be so far from Barcelonian. It's going to be more like a cross between Swahili and Scandinavian or something. I don't even know. This is going to be horrible. But so this scene is when Manuel's in the dining room setting up for lunch, and Basil comes into the dining room, sneaking away from Sybil, just to remind Manuel, because he's not good at things, to remind Manuel not to tell. Like he told him this morning, don't tell about Sybil, don't tell anyone that they're doing this. But he's got to remind Manuel that don't do this. So this is the scene where he's going in to remind Manuel, don't tell anyone I bet on the horse. That is the setup. And so let's just see how this goes.
Manuel.
Oh, your horse! It win!
Shh, Manuel, you know nothing.
You always say, Mr. Faulty, but I learn.
What?
I learn.
No.
I get better.
No, you don't understand.
I do.
No, you don't.
I do understand that.
Shh. You know nothing about the horse.
I know nothing about the horse.
Yes.
Which horse?
What?
Which horse? I know nothing.
My horse, nitwit.
Your horse, nitwit.
No, dragonfly.
It won.
I know.
I know it won too.
What?
I put money on that for you. You give me money. I go to the betting shop.
Yes, I know.
Then why you say I know nothing?
No, look. You know the horse.
Nitwit or dragonfly?
Dragonfly. There isn't a horse called. Oh, you're the nitwit.
What is witnit?
It doesn't matter. Look, oh my God, I could spend the rest of my life having this conversation. Please try to understand before one of us dies.
Okay, I try.
You're going to forget everything you know about nitwit.
No, dragonfly.
Yes, dragonfly.
Dragonfly. Yes. See.
Good.
Eventually.
What?
Eventually. At the end.
No. Forget it now.
Now?
Well, pretend you forget.
Pretend?
Well, don't say anything to anyone about the horse.
I know that. You tell me that this morning.
And scene.
And cut. But seriously, Annie, you've got to watch this. It's so hilarious and so... I said, I've watched this so many times, and it's amazing.
I have to say, that's one of my favorite shows, Faulty Towers. And actually, this episode, right before this whole scene, he has a scene with a lady that wants a special room. And
Mrs. Richards.
And the barbs that he throws at her because she can't hear are terrible,
so
but
funny.
hilarious.
Do you remember, it wasn't talking to her, but to his wife, he said, "Is this a piece of your brain?"
Right. Yes.
That was so. You'll have to see it to get what that means. But
it's crazy. All right. Well, with that, I think we should jump into our discussion with Ronnie Noodles. What do you say?
I wag to talk with Ronnie Noodles. Bark.
Joining us today is Ronnie Noodles. Welcome to the show, Ronnie.
Hey, glad to meet all of you. Thank you for having me on your show, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Why, thank you for saying that. And, we know everyone, like, every fur has to say that just because that's the thing to say. So we're really glad that you are not the one that did not say that.
I'm glad about that, too.
Awesome.
It's starting off great. Thank you.
Starting off perfect. So, Taebyn, why don't you jump right in and give him the third degree, if you will?
I'll give you fluff. So anyway, yes, Ronnie, it's really great to meet you. My name is Taebyn. I'm a pup, and you are Ronnie. You are a noodle. And could you tell us where you are from and about yourself? What are you? Where are you? And all those wonderful things that encompass the Ronnie, the noodle.
The Ronnie, the noodle, maybe not a legend quite yet, but you did get those first 2 points. I mean, that's really all there is to it. And I mean, as my social media profiles say, I am stuck between being a functioning working adult and a tasty noodle. So that's me in a nutshell. And I am located in Toronto, which is the capital of Ontario, and that is definitely mistaken as the capital of Canada, But, it's Toronto,
Oh.
which means we're just New York, but a little more polite.
Oh, I think I actually might have just learned something just there. Not only about the polite stuff, but geography.
Yeah, for sure. So, as I do happen to be a noodle or a noodle dragon in furry fandom lingo, and those basically translate to Eastern dragons. And in particular, I am of Chinese descent, so I have a Chinese dragon as my main character in the fandom. And I started out in the fandom probably about a dozen years back, so in about 2008, 2009. And since then, I've been a pretty active member of the fandom every single year. Well, except for 2020, of course, but I don't think any of us had a choice for that. So every other year except 2020.
And the little tiny podcast like this one, you come on every now and then. Yay! Thank you for doing such despiteful, no, the word's not despiteful, humbling feats, I guess. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Hi.
Taebyn, what are you talking about?
I have no idea. And thanks for asking.
Oh, that's perfect. I don't have any idea what I'm saying either. So that makes two
Okay.
of us.
Nor do you have any idea what I'm saying. So yeah, that just almost
It's
makes
just a
three of us.
whirlwind of confusion. It's like when bowls of noodles are just spinning out of control, and then all of a sudden you don't get pho, but you get like somebody else's pho.
All over your fur because you're a if you're a dog you got fur. Okay, that was really bad, so I'll just stop right there. I was trying it out, it didn't fit very well. So do you have any other personas, or is this your main fluff?
So this is my main fluff, but I am a character performer, and I guess that's part of the introduction as well. So I have performed a multitude of characters over the course of my furry career, I guess I'll call it. I first started out in terms of costume performing as myself, so Ronnie Noodles, and then in 2011 I had adopted a friend's character by the name of Tauntaun. And for those of you that are sci-fi fans, you'll know that Tauntauns are from the world of Star Wars, and they are the giant snow camel, lizard, llama, alpaca hybrid things, whatever you want to call them, from that giant frozen planet. So I adopted that character in 2011, and I've officially adopted him permanently now. And then
Hmm.
on top of that, I have a hyena character that I also adopted from another owner. I seem to just take in all of these stray animals. I don't know why. They just seem to all be drawn to me.
It's the New York in you.
It is the New York in me, except, I apologize when I adopt them. So, you know,
And that's the Canadian in you, I guess.
exactly. So I have a hyena. His name is Zeke, and I adopted him in 2012 after performing in him, just like I did with Tauntaun. And then in 2014, I had given life to a new dragon, another Eastern dragon, but of a different personality, and his name is Tien Long. And he is basically what you would call your old, wise, probably grumpy most of the time, kung fu master kind of dragon.
Nice.
So all of them have made their rounds in the fandom and are, I would like to say, relatively known in terms of just their general awareness and reputation. But I have also played other people's characters kind of on a lone basis from time to time, and I just really enjoy the character aspects. Character performance aspects of the fandom.
Cool. Do you do any like big performances? Like, do you actually do anything on stage and theater and stuff in that guise?
Yeah, all the time. So I actually have a pretty big reputation in the dancing circles of the fandom. So, in particular, I made my first names in the dance competition, and the two characters that I mentioned earlier, Tauntaun and Zeke Hyena, those two were the characters that I went into a couple of the big dance competitions at some furry conventions and actually placed rather well in those, and that's how my name started getting out there in terms of big stage performances. And as the years went on, I then transitioned from doing just dance competitions to being in both dance competitions and a masquerade. And then as time continued to go on, I went from just those two events to also then doing comedy stand-up. So now with some of my characters, I perform comedy on stage with some of the furry fandom's other comedians such as Uncle Kage and Boozy Badger. And then on top of that, people for some reason wanted to hear me talk even more on stage. So they started throwing me into doing opening ceremonies of some conventions. And at this point, I just go where I'm told to go. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing, but they say, "Hey, Ronnie, look, there's a stage. Get on it and do something." And usually I say, "Oh, shucks, I guess I'll do something."
Well,
That,
there you
there
go.
you go. I mean, what else can you say?
Wow.
I actually, yeah, I know the answer to that. What else can you say? And the answer is a lot because you just talked about how you could do that. So yeah, so you've been going to cons for quite a while, and as you said, you started out. So I'd like to start talking about that dancing since you mentioned it. I mean, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
You're a dancy fluff.
I am.
I'm a dancy pup myself. I'm really, 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 really bad at it. I flop all over the place, but that's what I do.
But that's the cutest kind of pup.
Is it? Oh well, I will accept that. We'll just go with that.
Yeah, floppy pups.
Floppy
That's the new dance style. It's like a 2021
pups.
craze, you know?
The floppy pups.
It's a craze that's just 4 days old.
It's
Exactly.
it doesn't take so long for things to become a craze these days, you see. You
You are
you
right.
gotta
You
move
are
with the
right about that.
changes.
And then a week later, it's gone.
A week
Yep.
later, we're on to the floppy kitty. I don't know, whatever. So you've been dancing quite a while and everything. So how long have you been dancing? And what got you into it? How did you learn and all that good start of your wonderful dancy-furness?
For sure. So I actually started dancing roughly around the same time I found the furry fandom. So I don't know if it was, some sort of weird destiny or some badly written anime plot that was that put dancing and furry together, but I started dancing around the same time, and I guess I just felt very attuned to the way that people could take one art form, which is music of course, and then they could integrate it with not only their own art form but also express themselves through it, because I personally believe that dance is the best expression of who you are as a person or as a character, and it's the most visual aside from artwork itself. And for me, I started getting into it when I was in middle school or junior high, depending on the country. But I saw some kids basically doing it in the hallway, so I grew up on doing street dancing. So I learned basically how to do some hip hop. I learned primarily how to do breakdancing, or b-boying as it's officially known, and watching again the cool kids do it. It's kind of like a high school musical situation, except if everybody listened to hip hop music.
Nice.
But
Kind of scary, but
from
there you go.
from yeah, from there, I don't know why it just spoke to me, but when I saw it, I said I want to do it. And I walked up to those cool kids, and I said, "Hey, teach me how to do that cool thing that you just did." And a lot of them kind of just smirked and was like, "Oh, who's this newcomer? Who's this random guy, this kid who we've never seen from, the light of day." And they basically just ignored me. But at that time I was kind of at the highest of my curiosity, so I was going to let the curiosity get the better of me and just start doing it. So I was mostly self-taught. I did have experience with learning in a studio, learning professionally, but for the most part, I self-taught myself after watching others do it. And that was how a lot of people did it back in the day when it came to street dance, because street dancing doesn't have its origins in studios or in classrooms. So street dancing had its origins on the street. And a lot of times you kind of had to just learn by watching, right? Learn by asking
Mhm.
someone that's doing it already, and hoping that they're in the mood and have the time to show you. So that was the situation that I was in. And once I tied that in with the furry fandom, I first got my start with a dance competition and introducing my version of dance back in 2010 at Anthrocon. And when I saw that there was a dancing community that was kind of very, very subtle, but also had this huge load of potential, it inspired me even more to continue improving myself, so then I could eventually give back and teach and inspire others that were within the fandom that wanted to do the same thing. But unlike what happens in traditional street dance circles, you would actually have access to someone with that knowledge, that information, who would be willing to teach and mentor you, especially in the furry fandom, where we all come here because in some form we're looking for socialization or companionship. We're looking for guidance and mentorship, things that we can't find as easily in reality in regular social circles. And for this particular element, for dancers that were finding their way to the furry fandom, I wanted to help again inspire and mentor them, so that they could, I guess, maybe they could get what I didn't get, trying to do it the hard way, the old school way.
Nice. And so is that where, because you started Floor Wars at Furcons.
Yeah, I did.
You did. Yay. Thank you very much for that. I have participated in a few of, we'll call them your Floor Wars. Lots of flopping around in your honor, I guess. I don't know. But
Well,
so Was that the first Floor Wars then you introduced in AC 2010?
So, Floor Wars actually came to the furry fandom in 2012 under the name Floor Wars. Now, there had been other events in previous furry conventions, namely Further Confusion in California, as well as FWA in Atlanta. And those two conventions had freestyle dance battles. So, even though the concept is not too different between Floor Wars and these other freestyle dance battles, the fandom didn't really take notice because there was no one that really wanted to champion this kind of dance event happening in the fandom. And
Yeah.
it took a while for us, and when I say us, I mean myself and my team, to really promote this across, the two big conventions at the time for dancers, which were Anthrocon and Midwest Fur Fest, and really just make a name for ourselves because, again, we were kind of like the kids off of the street that were trying to, walk into, for lack of better terms, a grown-ups party. And, kids on the streets, they were like, hey, we want to do this cool thing and it's going to be cool and everyone's going to love how cool it is. And we kind of got, pushed to the side almost quite literally for the first few years. And then after the first few years, we got some traction. People started to notice us as we continued to grow, as dancers continued to show just how good they were, how incredibly talented this fandom is as a whole. And after those few years had passed and we had, persisted and shown what kind of potential this had, we were then moved up to the big leagues. And now we are a mainstay at pretty much every major convention that you can find in, this world right now.
Yeah, it's true, including things like BLFC. I was in a
Mhm.
few of the BLFC. I don't think I've done an FC. Does FC have Floor Wars these days still?
So they actually introduced their very first version of Floor Wars in 2020. So, now again, it's making its rounds.
Yeah, I
You were in that one. You were in that one, Taebyn.
I was in that one, and I don't know why I even
Yeah.
asked that because I was there, and we had Fluke on the show a little
Yes.
bit ago, and of course he's the one that organized that year,
Mhm.
and of course we talked all about that, and then here I am like, does FC still have a Floor Wars? Like, Haven, I am such a pup, my fluffy. Anyway, okay, so
It's
now
all
we know
good.
the truth about that, I guess.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I was in that. Oh my lord. Anyway, hi. How's it going?
Hello. It's going great.
Great.
How's it going over on
Great.
your end?
I think it's okay. I forget.
He's a little confused, but it's
I'm a
okay.
little confused. So you started as, a choreographer, let me just call it regular dance comp stuff. And you were saying you did pretty well back in the beginning. So how long was it before you first did your first dance comp after you started like learning to dance and getting into the fandom and going to cons?
So I started dancing back around 2008, and that was again the same time that I discovered the furry fandom online. And from that time of me, learning how to dance in the hallways after school, and then me rushing back home to look at furry artwork, I was a very interesting child back then. But from that time to my very first dance competition, I would say that I'd been dancing for roughly about a year and a half. Not that I was very proficient at it, but it's kind of like, you at least put the effort in, not necessarily you're doing it correctly, but again, I had to make do with just learning and watching others do it and trying to mimic what they were doing until it felt right. So it was about a year and a half when I then went to Anthrocon 2010, and I wasn't even planning to enter the dance competition, to be completely honest with you. I was there a very, very tender age of 15. I was very lucky to be able to attend Anthrocon at such a young age, and I was basically bedazzled by the fact that, oh my goodness, I'm at Anthrocon. I'm at the world's largest furry convention at the time, and there's so many furries and there's so many fursuits, and wow, I'm at Anthrocon. You can imagine the starstruck little noodle walking around not knowing
Bedazzled.
where the heck he is. Yeah, bedazzled.
I like that you used that. That was very exciting.
I had so many sparkles in my noodles, you wouldn't even believe it.
I
So,
can't believe it right now. My
yeah.
bedazzlement is be amazing or something. I don't know.
So I was walking past a room in fursuit when I had heard music, and I was like, oh, well, this is dance music. I can dance to this. So, naturally, I start having a little bit of a groove while I'm walking. And I see two fursuiters standing outside the doors to the room. This was one of the panel rooms that they had in the convention center. And one of the fursuiters turned and looked at me. And somehow, I think they just recognized me because we had maybe talked about dance or, had some sort of interaction, some very, very superficial interaction online, but they recognized me and they called me by name. They said, Ronnie, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're here. Are you in the dance competition? And, for me, I was just, again, bedazzled and not really thinking about what exactly was happening in that moment. And I said,
Mhm.
what dance competition? What are you talking about? And they quite literally grabbed me by the wrist, reminding everybody out there that I was underage at the time, being grabbed on the wrist by a fursuiter and being pulled quite eagerly
Oh
into a
no.
panel room was probably a red flag, but I didn't feel it as a red flag at the time. So, well,
And it turned out to not be a red flag, so we're
so
good.
we're good. So we're very
Yeah.
good. And they pulled me into the room, and there were a bunch of other fursuiters in the room, and all of them were dancing in a cleared space. So they had, tables and chairs in the room and all that, but they cleared a space for people to dance. And this was the preliminaries panel, aka the tryout panel for the dance competition. And back in the day, the tryouts for a dance competition would be a bunch of fursuiters, usually between 6 to 8 at a time, would stand in an open space. The DJ or the person holding an iPod would play a song, and the people on the floor would have to dance, and the ones that danced the best got through to the main stage show. So in this case, Anthrocon didn't have enough people at that point because, again, the dancing community was a little small, to put it lightly, and we just needed people to participate to make it look like a full show. So they pulled me in and they said, hey, we know that you like dancing and you're in a fursuit, so why not join the dance competition? And again, me, 15-year-old little noodle, bedazzled by being completely out of his element and out of his place, I said yes. It's kind of like, you're held by, not necessarily by knife point, but it's like you're held by the sheer awesomeness of the place that you just kind of dumbly nod your head and don't say anything. So that is how I got dragged into my first dance competition. And I frankly went in there without any sort of plan or strategy or even choreography, as you mentioned earlier, Taebyn. And when I got on that stage in front of I don't know how many people, because to be honest, I couldn't see the crowd in a fursuit head. It was rather dark in there. And my music came on and my body just started moving on its own. That moment for me was a combination of the most fearful I've ever been in my life, as well as kind of a spark of, I guess, some sort of hidden potential unlocking in the back of my mind that said, oh yeah, I could do this. And from there, I guess it just grew into this natural yearning to be on the big stage and perform for everyone. And, if again, I hadn't been dragged against my will by the wrist by a fursuiter into a panel room, none of that would have ever happened. So,
And where was your parent at this Furcon?
oh, she was in her hotel room, probably watching Judge Judy on the TV or something.
Yeah.
There you
Okay.
go.
Yeah. There are usually rules about parents chaperoning the kids, but my mom said, you know what? If you get into trouble, just give them $20 and call it a day. And I said, oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh
Thank you,
no.
Mom.
Oh
That's
no.
great. That's great.
So question then, in that competition, did you place at all?
So sadly, that competition I did not place, but I
Ah,
mean, looking back at the caliber of talent that was there, I frankly would have not stood a chance with my little baby breakdancing techniques, I will call them. And not only that, but I decided that it would be great to quite literally almost kill myself on the stage by doing a full 3-minute routine in fursuit, to a very energetic song. And that performance is actually on YouTube for anyone that's interested.
oh wow.
All you have to do is search up Ronnie and then Anthrocon 2010. You'll find it, and you'll see that I am quite literally suffocating up there after about the first 30 seconds or first minute. So,
Oh no.
for those out there that are wondering, if you're looking at fursuit dancers and you think, wow, they're amazing, just remember that they are wearing several, pounds of foam and fur. And whatever we do that is already difficult enough out of suit, that is multiplied by 10 when we're in fursuit.
Yep, you're dancing in a sofa.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you want to know what it's like to be a fursuiter at home, go home, pull off the couch, the couch covers, put it over yourself, and that's what it's like to be in a fursuit.
And then run around for half an hour and see just how much excitement you are in.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, yes. So, any of our listeners out there, we have more than one these days. It's pretty exciting. I think we're up to 10 or maybe even 12.
Very nice.
Yeah. You can just, as Ronnie said, go to AC 2012 and you can see
2010.
2010. I wrote down the wrong year. Oh, my fluff. I am such a naughty puppy.
Well, that's your paws are hard
My
to
pausies
hold the
are
pen.
hard to manipulate things in
Well,
it.
I don't know about you two, but I've pretty much lost track of time these days, just being at home and not being able to see the sun. I'm basically a vampire who has a really bad sense of time, so I don't blame you for getting the year wrong. It feels like any other year, at this point.
Right?
You can't actually be a true Italian. Where am I going with this? Barely is wondering. You can't really be a true Italian vampire, though, because since you're a noodle, if you were a true Italian, you'd have all this garlic. And so you'd be like fighting yourself all the time.
Well, I do love garlic, so I'm
Okay.
glad I'm not Italian.
Moving along.
I like that Ronnie hasn't like left yet. It's like this. What
I
is this
know.
pup even doing? Oh my cow! But what I meant to say was that for any of our listeners, just go to, as Ronnie said, look for Ronnie and AC 2010, and that's not just anything. That's the special historic Ronnie doing things for the first time, and that's amazing. Well, I mean, you know what I mean, first time. But so, did you make it into finals then?
So back then, remember that part I mentioned about there weren't enough people?
Oh
So
yeah.
the tryouts ended up kind of just being a warm up, I would like to say. And well, everyone that went into the tryouts then ended up going on to the main stage show because it was so simple back in the day. I'm imagining like a back in the day harp playing now, but back in the day, we would just be in tryouts for maybe about half an hour to an hour, and everybody would have a good time. And it was a time for us to socialize and talk about what we'd done that con and where we're gonna meet up later and just how awesome we all are. And back again, there weren't enough people that the dance competition needed to be 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and have all the fancy AV and the lighting and the talk show host and the tuxedo and all that kind of stuff. We didn't need any of that back
You
then.
didn't-
Nowadays, however,
Yeah, like that. Like the prelims are like a half a day long, and
a half-day long affair. You see people warming up and stretching outside the room. You see people like with their headphones in and they're in the zone and they look like they've been practicing like a monk up in the mountains for a year, and it becomes very, very tense. And yeah, it's a different beast these days than it was back then. But back to the original question, I did not place, unfortunately, although even though everyone made it into what we call the finals.
yeah.
Mhm.
However, the following year, where I returned to Anthrocon 2011, I mentioned the character Tauntaun that I adopted. The original owner of Tauntaun, by the way, was an artist named Wookie, who, back in the day in the furry fandom,
Oh
was
wait,
one of the biggest
uh,
names the furry fandom
is
are.
this Wookie?
Yep, that is the same
With the
Wookie.
two E's?
Yep, with the same two
I
E's.
love. Oh my. Okay. Barely. I promise. I'm not gonna. This is. You just like hit on like a big name for this pup right here. But okay, I'm going to console. I'm going to contain myself so that Barely doesn't have to do the move along sign, Taebyn. And I'm going to let you keep talking, but just know that you just hit on this huge name for this pup right here. Okay,
Oh,
I'll
no
let you keep
worries.
talking
Yeah, no worries. You can console yourself in the meantime. But anyhow,
now.
yeah, I met Wookie back in 2011. I actually found out that Wookie, also being Canadian himself, didn't live too far from me.
Mhm.
And we had a bit of a talk because he had put out an ad to have his character enter the dance competition before it retired, and I had submitted my name for performing in it. And I wasn't originally going to because someone else had already filled the slot, but due to some lucky happenstance, I ended up taking over that role. And that year in the dance competition, I did manage to place as second in that competition,
Very
and there
cool.
was some pretty fierce competition that year, let me tell you. 2011, I believe, was a turning point.
That was AC?
Yep, Anthrocon
Okay.
2011.
I'll
And
have to check that out.
yeah, for
Mm.
sure. And not to shamelessly self-promote my own performances, but all of these are on YouTube if anyone cares
Mhm.
to, search them up. So Anthrocon 2011, Tauntaun, Taun, and then just spell that twice. Yeah, that I ended up winning second place in, and it was that was again another one of those moments of, both just crushing crushing amounts of anxiety, as well as that euphoric high of, wow, I'm on stage, I'm the person everybody's looking at, let's put on a good show.
Mhm.
So yeah, and the year after, or actually not even the year after that, the next convention after that for me, which was Midwest Fur Fest 2011, I repeated that feat and I got second place there.
Nice.
And then after that, the year after that in Anthrocon 2012, I repeated that yet again and got second place. And it seems to be a common theme now: second place, second place, second place, until Midwest Fur Fest 2012. That was where I had gotten an invitation to perform as Zeke Hyena, who at the time was owned by Firestorm 6, a Canadian fursuit maker of pretty well known regard. And he had loaned me his hyena character, and I took it into the dance competition. And this time I told myself, okay, you've been enjoying yourself so far. You've been having fun. You've been inspiring dancers. You've been, having a good time. But now it's time to win. And
It's time. It's time.
and you know what? There just came that moment where I really, really pushed for a, unforgettable performance that put all of my energy, all of my personality into it. And at MFF 2012, Zeke Hyena took home the win. And that was the
Nice.
first crowning achievement for me in terms of winners, I guess, in the dance competition.
Crowning of the noodle.
Well, hyena, but yeah, same thing.
Well, okay, I got excited, I guess. Maybe Zeke was eating noodles at the time, so in a way, no, you would know. Never mind, I don't know.
Well, I mean, no, you might be right. Noodles might have provided the energy that he needed. They're like frosted flakes, but for hyenas,
There you go. Okay.
They're right.
They're okay, good. I did know what I was talking about. That's great. So you're like your Floor Wars style. I mean, you're a break dancer, and that's just totally amazing, and you're wonderful. And I happened to just a few days ago watch. You were, I think it was in Seoul. You were against what's his name? Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
Well, I actually was not in Seoul. I'm assuming you mean Seoul, Korea?
Maybe. So maybe not. Maybe I was
Maybe
watching
not.
something else.
I was gonna say traveling is a little hard these days. Just
Well,
Yeah, right?
I think this was like 3 or 4 years ago or something. But whatever I was watching, you were there and you were doing this amazing stuff with breakdancing and all that wonderful stuff. You are, of course, a breakdancer, this amazing breakdancer that flies all over the crazy cow place, whatever a crazy cow place is. That's what you do, and it's amazing. And that's your typical style in Floor Wars. I think so. Is that right?
yes. I mean, I don't know if I fly over the cows in Floor Wars, but I do definitely fly over at least some wooden planks nailed down by metal nails and all that. So yeah,
That's
I
really
guess
good.
you could
Small
call it
metal
a cow in some
I-
ways.
Is that your main? I mean, that's your main style, but do you have any other styles like popping and locking or all that other spangled stuff out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do a style that is also pretty popular, especially if you're a fan of disco and disco music and all that. And that style is called locking. So locking
Oh,
is again most commonly seen with any sort of disco era music, and was popularized by a man called Don Campbell back in the 70s, who
hmm,
is also from California. And he basically brought the style into, I guess, not just a new limelight in the media, but also as an art form itself, because a lot of people were very passionate about the, I guess, what you would call the soul, the funk, things that were not necessarily translating into making money or mainstream media, but rather that carried the essence of having fun and having a good time, and really just showing your stuff on the floor. So that style, known as locking, is something that was not necessarily my first choice as a dance style, but when I was first entering professional dance team in a studio where I live in Toronto, it was taught by the leader of that dance team. So he bestowed it upon me, and it grew on me very quickly because it has a lot of connection to b-boying or breakdancing, and
mhm.
because both again were seen very, very frequently together. They were basically called breakdancing all as one, even though they were two
Mhm.
separate styles. So because it went so naturally together, I picked up on it and started incorporating it into my dance. And then
Cool.
beyond that, like you mentioned, popping was also something I picked up, again, part of the curriculum that the dance team leader had taught us. And then after that, I had gotten into something called crumping. Now, crumping is
Mm,
a much more subtly, it's I want to say subtle, but it's not subtle, but it's a subtly understood art form, because what people see as very, very almost sporadic, very jerky, powerful, aggressive like movements is actually an art form that is known as crumping. And if you search up crumping on your own and look at what it looks like, you'll also think to yourself, wow, this is very different than breakdancing or locking or popping. It doesn't seem to have as much structure. It seems a lot more aggressive, almost violent to a point. But it is an art form as well that is making its way, I guess what you would call mainstream social media, because of how dynamic, how aggressive it is. And there hasn't been a big uptake in dancers learning how to do crump or incorporating it into their routines. But at the same time, when you see it, you'll think to yourself, wow, this is not nothing like I've ever seen before.
And is that with a K or a C? Or how do you spell that?
That would be with a K. So imagine the word crumpet, like, an English crumpet that you would have with T, but remove the ET at the end and then replace the C with a K. So KRUMP.
Okay, so you're removing ET, so we're like not on Earth anymore.
Nope, nope, definitely
And
not on Earth.
because of ET. And then I was going somewhere else with that, but I think I will not do that. So moving right along. So for any fur trying to start out with dancing, or maybe they currently are dancing furs but want to improve, what recommendations would you have?
Well, on a normal basis and in a normal year, I would say that finding others around you or finding a studio that you could go to, take lessons and all that would be ideal, especially if you have studios around that teach such things. But we're not in a normal year, so it's a little bit harder to find people around you and meet up with them for safety's sake. But with that being said, there are a lot of online resources these days, much more than ever before, for people to not just search up a dance video, a how-to video, but even pay for online one-on-one tutoring through, the use of a camera. So even though it's not the same thing as someone being there and showing you how it's done, at least you have someone there to provide feedback. And in the furry fandom, especially, there are way, way more dancers in this day and age than there were 10 years ago when I was helping to foster the community up. And I would say that a lot of them would be more than willing to, just give a hand or look at your videos that you send and, give you honest feedback and just continue to help motivate you. Because I think one of the biggest things that really set apart those that are committed to being better as dancers versus those that are just doing it because their friend told them to, or doing it because this is going to get them big on social media. The biggest thing is whether or not they stay motivated or stay committed. And I find that, it gets hard to stay motivated or committed if you don't have an audience. And, if you're constantly just dancing to yourself, you're dancing and no one's kind of like around giving you feedback, no one's there to watch you, it gets very, very demoralizing and demotivating. So, for people that are in the furry fandom and they want to learn how to get better, I don't necessarily think that, learning how to break dance like I do, or learning how to do popping like Strobes does, or learning how to dance like this person or that person, I wouldn't recommend learning how to do a particular style. But what I would recommend is for them to get more involved with the community that we already have, because once they start showing what they're doing, once they start, just putting themselves out there, sending videos, putting up clips or whatnot, and people are able to see what they're doing, provide feedback, provide a little bit of advice, that will help not just give them better feedback and advice to improve their dance, but that will also help to motivate them to continue going forward. Because again, motivation is the biggest killer, or rather the lack of motivation is the biggest killer for anyone that is up and coming and trying to make a name for themselves, with dancing. And I think the furry fandom has, a good support network that the motivation can be provided whenever it's needed.
Here, here. I heard. So moving on, it kind of actually in that vein, still the dancey vein, tell us about what is Last for One?
So I see you've heard of the definitely not associated with Ronnie crew, Last for One. I'm joking. Of course I'm associated with it.
I believe you're the founder, are you not?
Yeah, actually, you are in fact correct. I am one of at least the founders, one of the co-founders of Last for One, although I do take the leadership position as of, well, its founding. But I founded Last for One with two other dancers back in 2011. one. So the other two dancers being Atsu Fox, who has also made quite a name for himself in the dancing circles of the fandom, and Mosey Otter. Now, Mosey Otter, I don't believe he is active in the fandom, at least not on the dancing side, but he was a part of the original crew, and all three of us together had the same vision where we could, again, use our combined knowledge, our combined skill, and just create a community where we help to foster and improve each other. And by doing so, we could also take that back ourselves, and just it becomes a cycle of you give, you get what you give. And as much as we were giving out in terms of our advice and all of our tutorials and workshops that we hosted, we got back a lot of motivation, like I mentioned earlier, to keep on doing it. So Last for One, to bring it back to the kind of overview, is the first dance crew in the furry fandom that was established back in 2011, which is still active today, although not as frequently due to, of course, events happening in the world. And we are the crew responsible, again, for putting on Floor Wars at major conventions, currently at Anthrocon, MFF, and FWA, as well as helping to provide support for dance competition organizers around continental USA. So most, if not all, of my crew participate in dance competitions as well, in some form of support, whether as organizers, whether as just consultants. But we basically pride ourselves in being the experts of the field and having, the breadth of knowledge that we can help out whoever needs help from, the dancing community.
Cool. You're a great support, definitely, for all of us dancing furs, all the Furcons, all the just everything. We love that you and your crew are there. Now, Atsu is also in fraternity. So is there any overlap with you and or Last for One and fraternity?
So Fraternity is Atsu's brainchild, along with one of the other members. I can't remember exactly
Hmm.
which, but I think it may have been Ikato, but Ikato is sadly no longer active in the furry fandom. But in terms of the involvement, Fraternity is a team of dancers that are exclusively focused on putting on performances. So
Okay.
Fraternity does not put on events, they do not put on workshops or tutorials. They are strictly a performative group versus I guess what you would call a team of dancers that, organize and support other events.
But such a great performance group, though, too, of course.
Oh, absolutely. All of the dancers in fraternity are, extremely well, talented, and they put a lot of time and effort into creating all of the pieces that they've performed so far.
Yeah.
So, hats off to them. And in terms of overlap, the only way I would see the overlap between Last for One and Fraternity is Atsu, of course. Although technically they did have a member at one time that was also in Last for One, but I don't think that member again is active anymore. So
Okay.
that would be the only overlap I would see.
So, where can we find? So, this kind of is an all-encompassing thing as far as like, where can we find more of you? Where can we find out more about Last for One? What are the social medias? All that encompassing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of where you can find me, Ronnie Noodles, online, of course, you can find me on social media. I'm on most major social medias. Well, I frequently only use Twitter because I refuse to get onto the TikTok craze.
Well, good for you.
I barely have enough time for Twitter, so I unfortunately will do a hard pass on TikTok. But Twitter at Ronnie Noodles is where you can find me most of the time, anyways. And I have thought about trying to start, my own Ronnie Noodles website, but again, I barely have the time of day for managing my own Twitter account, let alone websites. But for Last for One, we have a website that contains, all the information about Last for One and its crew members, and it is quite literally lastfur1.com. So last and then fur as in furry fandom, and then one, ONE, not a number one, but actually spelling out the number one.com.
And there's no dashes. It's just one word, right?
One word, no dashes.
And then you Twitch as well, don't you?
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you for reminding me of the thing that I definitely did not ask you about before the podcast. But
Of course
I,
not. No,
I, I
no.
have also started trying, at least, to stream a little bit more myself. So I do try and live stream on Twitch on a semi-frequent basis. I'd say maybe once or twice a week at least. And that is, again, Ronnie Noodles on Twitch. So just one word, Ronnie Noodles.
Awesome. Thank you.
And what do you do on Twitch? You just, like, sit there and talk to people, or there's people with you, or first with you, or what do you how do you live stream on a Twitch?
So, in terms of my content on Twitch, I try and just do what I feel like doing, and to be honest, that puts me in the category of variety streamer, but I don't think that I have enough variety to be considered that. That being said, though, I do try and keep the focus of my live stream on interacting with others. So even if I'm playing games, even if I'm, drawing artwork, even if I'm providing critiques on other dancers, which I actually do on my live streams, I try and just keep it all about the community, the folks that are there, and hopefully they are not only finding entertainment, but they're also finding some sort of wisdom on my streams whenever they tune in.
Nice, nice, very good. Is there anything else that you would like Furs to know about you?
I am a noodle. Did I mention that? I'm a very
Uh,
noodly kind of noodle. But other than
that's
that,
the best kind of noodle.
yeah, the noodliest kind of noodle. Other than the dancing and the fursuiting part, though, one thing that I do pride myself in doing is also being very involved with convention organizing. So
Cool.
I've been staff and or department head at several furry conventions around continental USA as well as up here in Toronto, Canada. And it really does put a new perspective on how to build a community and what it takes to bring people together. Because a lot of people they go to conventions, they think, wow, look, a convention, neat, and they don't think they don't think a second past that. There is so much that happens at conventions behind the scenes, a month before, 3 months before, 6 months before. Conventions aren't just something that just show up and then leave after 3 days or 4 days.
No, wouldn't that be magic?
Conventions are very, very, I wish they were that simple, but conventions are a very, very long and very stressful process in terms of planning, making sure you have everything, organizing the right stuff, getting the right people to organize the right stuff, and ultimately making sure that what you're doing is right for the community that you're trying to serve. So for me, I've been involved with convention organizing for about, I'd say, 6 years now. Yeah, actually,
nice.
6 going on 7 years now. Yeah. So yeah, and the reason why I bring this up is because I want to also help inspire the next generation of people that may join the ranks of convention staff or convention organizers to really, really just remember that these kind of things, even if they're hard, even if they are stressful, even if you got to make sacrifices to build a community, to keep the dream of the furry fandom growing and continuing to thrive, it really is worth all of that trouble at the end of the day, especially when you get to the convention and you see people enjoying themselves and enjoying the events that you organize, that you put on.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah. Well,
What are the main, like, what were the ones who were the heads of, and like the heads? You have more than one head, apparently. Which ones were you like had the most?
I got a couple in the closet. They're different shapes depending on which one I put on, but
It's really true, and some are more noodly than others. So, what are like some of the bigger ones that you would typically be involved in or organize or be a head of a department at?
So I'll start with the one that's local to me. So in Toronto, I am the department head of the venue of relations as well as business relations for Fernal Equinox. So that
Mm,
is Toronto's furry convention. We are about 11 years old now. Actually, we're going on 11 years old this year, and technically not this year because we didn't actually have a con last year, and we're not having one this year. Thanks, COVID. But we are running on year 11 of our convention, and I was involved starting back in 2014 where I started just doing social media. From social media, I graduated into being the head of basically all the communications, and then during that time, I also started getting involved with the venue coordination and relationships. So a lot of back end communications and business dealings. And then for other conventions, I was the head of the fursuit track for one convention. I believe it was Motor City FurCon. Yes, it was Motor City FurCon, which is in Michigan, and that was a single year thing in terms of being the head for that. After that, I transitioned to regular programming staff. Indie FurCon, I was also the head of the fursuit track for Indie FurCon held in Indianapolis, and also transitioned back to regular programming staff. And then for Anthrocon, Anthrocon, I have been on both the programming and the logistics staff. Actually, still currently an active member of both. So
Nice.
Anthrocon is one that people will find me at. And most recently and most unwillingly, I have been dragged onto staff at Eurofurence.
Oh.
So I don't know why they decided giving me a staff badge was necessary, but apparently it is necessary, and I hate it. So thank you, Eurofurence, if you ever listen to this.
So do they drag you out to Germany every year then?
So I dragged myself out to Germany, and I think that was
Okay.
the first mistake because they were like, "Yes, new victim." But, to be perfectly honest and of course realistic, I love the folk that are at Eurofurence. The community there is fantastic. The people behind it are amazingly dedicated, amazingly passionate about what they do. So I'm happy to, of course, support them in any way I can. At the same time, hopefully COVID is not going to be around for too much longer, at least in this year, while things are starting to look up and we can get back to running these conventions, organizing things, and making the magic happen.
And hugging all
Absolutely.
the fluff.
And hugging all
Yeah.
the fluff as well, indeed.
Right, right. So to wrap this all up, I'm going to give you an opportunity to do a parting shot and some wisdom word.
We're playing billiards now.
It's a parting shot, yes. So, what have you got to say to inspire our listeners?
What does a noodle have to say that he has not already said? And
Right?
if the listeners haven't already been scared off by how much I'm saying, but
If the listeners are still listening after they've heard the show at least once, which means they've heard me like talk, they are so happy to hear you talk. They're good. Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Gotcha. Well, I will say, especially in this new year, and being the first podcast of the new year, that things are going to be tough. Things are going to unfortunately be this way for another while. Not being able to see friends, not having conventions like we've already spoken about. But the strongest thing that we have is we have each other as a community, and whether it's just simply staying in touch, sending a message to that friend you haven't checked up on in a while, or just keeping social however you can. I think it's very important that as a community, as a fandom, that we continue to work with the rest of society to make sure that we can beat this thing and we can come back strong, we can come back together, and we can have an awesome 2021.
There you go.
Yeah, and also make sure you eat lots of noodles because noodles are great.
There you
Noodles are
go.
delicious.
I wag for all of that, especially the noodles.
Awesome. Well, Ronnie, thank you very much for coming on our show. It's an honor to have you, and all the things that you've done. I'm constantly amazed about how many things all the furs do that come on our show, and you are no exception. You have a pedigree like no other.
Well, thank you for having me once again.
And he's not even a pup, and he's still pedigree.
Still
Well,
pedigree.
I do have a tiny chihuahua, so
Oh,
she can have my pedigree for me.
nice.
There you go.
Nice.
All right. Well, Ronnie, we'll let you get back to your life. Thank you for coming on the show. Taebyn, what's your parting shot?
Well, there's the 8 ball in the corner pocket, so I lose. And besides that, I say yes. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and the show. It's been really great to talk to you and find out about you. You've always been a great dancy fluff, and that's amazing. So thank you so much. I hope to hug you someday in the fluff. And I wag, bark, bark.
Thank you. And again, I enjoyed my time here. You two are great folk, and I wish you all the best with all of your future podcasts.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Talk to you next time.
All right. Talk to you next time.
That was a wonderful thing with Ronnie. I didn't realize he was. So I have to be honest. When Rain said, "Let's get Ronnie Noodles on," I was like, "Okay." And you would talk to him and you put it on there, and I was like, "I don't even know who this guy is. I don't know who this fur is." And so I did my research. You did your stuff, and I was like, "Wow, he's been around. But that's
Yeah, he's
a powerful fur."
Yeah, Ronnie's been around for quite a while. As you heard him say, he's done some amazing things for the fancy fur community.
Mm-hmm.
You should, all you furs out there, if you haven't seen his stuff, go on and watch his stuff. He alluded to some before, but go on YouTube and look for him. And he's got some good dances going on there. Yeah, anyway.
I had to
Yeah.
refrain from a couple of jokes during the discussion because I just had to, but I had to
I-
say them now. I have to say them now.
Okay. Because I was just going to say, you let me take the heat for the really, really bad jokes that went nowhere.
Right.
Instead, so you were actually saving your own face. But I guess now you're going to say them anyway. So it's like we're even.
I know, right? So, he said he went out and did something with as a character Tauntaun, which
Yeah.
is from Star Wars. Do you know what the internal temperature of a Tauntaun is?
Room.
No, lukewarm.
Oh. It
Anyway, uh,
you refrain yourself from saying that?
I
How on
did. I
earth
did.
did you
I,
refrain yourself from saying that?
I took a drink of my podcast fluid.
Is that what I saw? I saw your
Yes.
face get all, like, scrunched up, and I thought it's
Mhm.
because he was start talking about Star Wars, and you were getting excited about that, but no, you had this joke that was the thing.
Had to go. Yeah, yeah. And then,
I
of course,
see.
when he talked about that, it was his destiny about things. He's saying it's my destiny and my destiny. The line from Back to the Future came into my head.
I'm your density. I mean, your destiny.
I don't even remember that line. I believe you, but I don't.
I speak great movie quotes, but
I
anyway.
see, I see.
Anyway, so what do you say we get to our next segment?
I think that would be best. Let's
That would be
move
best, yes.
on, little puppy, to the next segment.
And with that, that was our
And with
furries
that.
in the news section. So moving
That
along.
was
No,
it right there.
it's all the time we allotted, and we're done. No.
I'm such a pup. Oh my cow.
So you are going to be very excited about this. Beastars.
Oh, Beastars. I wag already.
Right. You have to wait until July. Season 2 comes out in July.
Oh my fluff. I am excited. I wag, and I know there's lots of furs out there that wag too, because we get to see more. You guessed it, Legoshi. Although I know some furs were hoping I would say Louis, but sorry, I'm a pup. I gotta go Legoshi.
You got to go with Legoshi.
Or
Yeah.
I think it's pronounced Legoshi, actually.
Legoshi, yes.
Yeah.
Well, if you'd like to see the current or the new season 2, it's already been released in Japan on Netflix Japan. So if you are a techno fur and you can convince your television that it's in Japan,
Hey, you're in
and
Japan. Don't you know that? Come on, you just woke up. You're in Japan now.
right. Well, and there's ways to do that. There are ways to
Oh.
make your internet think that you're on a virtual private network in Japan.
Okay.
And then you can log in and watch the original Japanese version. However, unless you speak Japanese, you'd have no way of knowing what they're talking about. But
Although, I'm speaking Japanese. I'm speaking Japanese. I really think so.
are you turning Japanese?
I'm turning. Oh yeah, it's turning. I said
Not
speaking,
speaking.
but I meant
Yeah.
turning. So
Yeah.
I'm not doing well tonight. But if I were in Faulty Towers and I were man, I would be Manuel.
Yes. All right. And of course, Telegram. There's big news on Telegram.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
Actually, some controversy about that, I think. But yeah, there is.
A little bit of controversy because they are going to try and now make money because they surpassed 500 million users.
That's a lot of users.
Yes. And I can tell you that there is one user that is not on there, and that person is Donald J. Trump.
Because they said nope.
They said, nope. They literally banned him, but he was never on the platform, which is kind of funny.
Anyway, let's just preemptively strike on this.
Pretty much.
I mean,
And-
if MySpace banned him, well,
Well, MySpace, yeah. He will single-handedly bring back MySpace.
there are so many directions to go with that. I'm not even going to just start.
Right. Now, see, what was funny, because when I joined the fandom in 2017, you introduced me to Telegram.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was only for furries.
And I hear there's non-furry groups out there. I'm sure there are. I mean, with 500 million users, there's got to be non-furry groups and stuff. And I've looked for some. My hubby's all into knives and everything, like we talked before on the Boons episode. And I've wanted to find a good knife Telegram group for him, but I cannot, for the life of this fluff, I cannot find any non-furry Telegram groups. But apparently there are.
And I know there are because I have friends. I know that seems odd, but I do have a couple of friends.
I won't say anything.
And they pop up on Telegram. It's like, why are you on Telegram? And then I realize,
Oh, they
it's
do?
not just
Really?
for furries. Yeah. because they
Wow.
find me on Telegram, which is funny because I'm not sure how they find me on Telegram. I don't know. The only thing I can think of is, if you had a smartphone and you are on Telegram and they load Telegram, Telegram says, "Hey, these people are on Telegram."
They know each other, so they link their like phone numbers together or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And so, like, if I open up my contacts on my Apple phone, anybody that's on Telegram will pop up as being on Telegram, and I can
Oh,
send
they
them a
do.
message. Oh yeah.
That's a little scary, actually.
Yeah, everything's connected. The internet knows us all, so get over it.
Get over it. We talked kind of about this last week, I think, about the Lexus like learning everything.
I'm excited that there are 500 million users,
Yeah.
and I read the article about the making money, and I think it's just going to be about the huge super user groups that have 1,000 or more members.
Yeah, I'm in one that I hadn't heard about the money making thing. I'm in the Reddit Furs group, and it has like 23,000 members or something.
Wow.
Definitely the biggest one I'm in. I'm not in many that are over 1,000. I'm in a few that are over 1,000, but yeah, that it's
How do you
huge.
how do you even keep up on people posting? I mean, you log out, you log in, there's 7,000 posts. How do you watch all that? It's
Well,
like
there's a reason that it takes me a long time to get back to Furs sometimes.
because you read all 7,000 entries. I know.
You got
Yeah.
it takes time. It takes so I apologize to all you furs if you're trying to talk to me and I don't talk back. It's not that I hate you or anything. Definitely not. It's because I'm really bad at things.
So there's that. Telegram is coming into its own. But now, upcoming events. Let's talk about TFF. They went
Yep.
virtual, I hear. So
Yep. They canceled the physical con. Oh, we talked about this a few months ago or something, but they are going to have a virtual con. It's March 25th through 28th. I'm not sure if it's going to be all those days, but it'll be that weekend. Their theme this year, which it's the same theme they were going to have anyway, Oceanic Adventure, because like no one else
ooh,
has done an oceanic thing, so I guess we were doing.
that's a wet thing.
It's a very wet thing. My fluff will be so wet. It's like I don't stand around now near me because it'll smell really bad. Go to their website if you just Google Texas Furry Fiesta, and of course I plug them because this is one of my favorite cons. I love TFF so much. I've been 3 times. So they announced this several weeks ago, I think, that
Hmm.
they would go virtual, maybe 3 weeks or something.
Okay.
So it's relatively new, which means they don't have too much information about it on the site, but you can go on and see what it's all about, and eventually they'll have registration open and everything. So
Nice.
for all you furs that want to do another virtual con, check out TFF.
So this is going to be a true virtual reality where you need like the 3D goggles and stuff,
You don't need them. It enhances the experience, but
right?
you can just go and you don't have to have an avatar. I don't think you just go and do the stuff. It's just the more you have, the more enhanced they'll be for you. But yeah, I think any fur can participate and watch the panels and all that good stuff.
Nice. All right.
Yeah, very cool.
Well, I think it's time for you to grace us with a story.
I'm not going to try and trick you or anything this time, Barely. I'm going to let
Oh,
you know what's happening.
okay. Okay, please. Thank you.
Oh, in preface to all this, I have to say that I found some Star Wars trivia. I meant to tell you Star Wars trivia before because I know how you are about Star Wars.
Okay. Mhm.
Chewbacca was raised on Earth by human parents. We know he was an excellent athlete and actually played baseball for the Los Angeles Dodgers. His first year in the big leagues, he batted 300, and he was named the Wookiee of the Year.
Oh. Oh.
That's a preface to my story. I have a few stories, and they're short stories.
Okay. All
But
right.
so here's what I'm letting you know. I'm not trying to trick you. I'm letting you know what's happening right now.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. And our listeners, thank you as well.
So my hubby for Christmas got me this book. It's called "Does the Name Pavlov Ring a Bell?" This book, it's a big book. It's got like all kinds of like relevant and all kinds of puns. It's got
Uh-huh.
different chapters for all different things, and so they're really good. And some of them are longer story types, like the one I told about a few weeks ago. So I want to read a few of them. And so
Okay.
this is me telling you what's going to happen, so that you don't have to guess what's he building up to.
Okay. Well, it's gonna be a nice segue right into our joke section right
It
afterwards.
is.
Yes.
And these will be the good ones. Like this was I think it was written in 2016, but updated in 2018.
Oh, well, there you
Whereas,
go.
the other joke book was 1968.
50 years old. Yeah. It's like,
So these will actually be good. So we'll just do the good ones, and then we'll go to
okay.
the really bad ones, and
All
that'll be
right.
great.
All right. Give us a short story from the Does This Ring a Bell?
1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4, and they are really short, actually.
Okay. All right.
A group of chess enthusiasts checked into a hotel, and they were standing in the lobby. They were discussing their most recent tournament victories. After about an hour,
Wait. Stop. Their tournament victory?
tournament. Sorry.
Oh,
Their
okay.
That would help. Their tournament. After about an hour, the manager came out of the office and asked them to disperse. Like, please disperse. Like, leave this place. They asked, but why? And he said, because I can't stand chestnuts boasting in an open foyer.
Oh, okay.
These are very true to life stories.
Yes.
A woman a woman has twins and gives them up for adoption. One of them goes to a family in Egypt and is named Amel. The other goes to a family in Spain. They name him Juan. Years later, Juan sends a picture of himself to his birth mother. Very good of him to do that. Upon receiving the picture, she tells her husband that she wishes she had a picture of Amel. Her husband responds, they're twins. If you've seen Juan, you've seen Amel.
Uh-huh.
Are you gonna make it? Are you okay?
Let me take another sip of podcast fluid and let's go.
The scene for this story is set in an African village.
Okay, a village.
The story is told of an African chieftain who lived in a simple grass hut and sat on an elegant, hand-carved makes more wooden throne. After ruling for a few years, he decided that wood wasn't good enough for him. He wanted a gold throne. So he commissioned his craftsmen to make a beautiful gold throne, and he took the wood one and stored it in the small attic of his hut. A few months later, the sounds of warring natives from another tribe were heard approaching the village, and the African chief quickly assumed that they were probably going to steal his gold throne. Gasp! So he exchanged the thrones, bringing the wooden one back down from the attic, from its hiding, and then he hid the gold one back in the attic where the wooden one was. While he sat there anticipating the arrival of the enemy, what's an enemy? I don't know. Enemy tribal warriors. Suddenly, the gold throne upstairs broke through the ceiling and came crashing down on the poor chief's head and killed him. So, what is the moral of the story, do you ask? Well, I'll tell you the moral of the story. People in grass houses shouldn't stow thrones.
Oh.
I had to hold my back. I had to hold my back.
Hold your back. Hold your back. Puppy got back. Puppy got back.
Dun, 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 dun. No, actually, that's not how it goes, but yeah. So this one is a little bit of a sad story, I must say. This poor woman goes to the vet with her bird, and she laid her pet on the table, and the vet pulled out his stethoscope and listened to the bird's chest. After a moment or two, the vet shook his head sadly and said, I'm so sorry, but your duck, Cuddles, he's passed away. The distressed owner wailed, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure that the duck is dead, he replied. How can you be so sure? She protested. I mean, you haven't done any testing on him or anything. He might just be in a coma or something. I mean, a duck coma. I haven't really heard of such a thing, but maybe. You never know. You never know,
yeah.
The vet rolled his eyes, turned around. He left the room and returned a few moments later with a black Labrador retriever. As the duck's owner looked on in amazement, the dog stood on his hind legs, put his front paws on the examination table, and sniffed the duck from top to bottom. He then looked at the vet with sad eyes and shook his head. The vet patted the dog, took it back to the back room, and returned a few moments later with a cat. The cat jumped up on the table and also sniffed delicately at the bird from head to foot. Then the cat sat back on its haunches, shook his head, meowed softly, and strolled out of the room somberly. The vet looked at the woman and said, I'm sorry, but as I said, this is most definitely 100% certifiably a dead duck. The vet then returned to his computer terminal, hit a few keys, and produced a bill, which he handed to the woman. The duck's owner, still in shock, took the bill, $150, she cried. $150 to tell me that the duck is dead? The vet shrugged. I'm sorry, but if you'd taken my word for it, the bill would have only been $20. With the lab report and the CAT scan, it's now $150.
I saw that coming a mile away.
I know.
saw it
You had to sit back
so
and okay, one more.
One
This is
more.
the big one. This is the big one.
This is what we've all been waiting for.
I hope not, actually, but here it is.
Since episode 1, we've all been waiting for this moment.
This moment. We're done after this. No more.
This is the culmination of our entire podcasting career right here.
There once was a small town in which there lived a group of monks. These monks, having need of money to fund their monastery, decided to open a flower shop. I mean, what else are monks going to do, right?
Well, sure.
Well, the rest of the townspeople were very pleasant at first, since they hadn't had a flower shop before. However, some people became concerned that when they noticed that whenever children were sent to the shop to buy some flowers, they went missing. A group of citizens went to the shop to see if the monks knew what had happened to them. They entered the store and were immediately impressed and awed by the wide assortment of exotic flora present. However, their admiration turned to horror when one of the larger plants reached down, grabbed a small boy, and swallowed him whole.
Oh, no.
The villagers fled the shop, screaming, attacking the attention of other townspeople. As soon as the news was spread, the people decided that the only thing to do was to get rid of the evil monks. A group of 20 men armed themselves with clubs and staves at high noon. They attacked the monks' flower shop. However, they were unprepared for the high level of fighting skills.
Everybody was kung fu fighting
Of the Brown Robe brothers. The men were beaten back in less than 15 minutes. So the townspeople assembled a second group, this time arming them with knives and scythes. At midnight, they attacked. But once again, the merciless monks beat them back, this time in less than 10 minutes. The townspeople were at a loss. Who would save them from this corrupt capuchins? And I don't know what a capuchins is, but apparently it's evil monks, I guess. Suddenly, out of the darkness stepped Hugh the blacksmith, the tallest, strongest, and most foul-smelling man in the village. Do not worry, my friend, said Hugh. I will rid the town of these evil evangelists. We have evil evangelists afoot. The townspeople, having no other alternative, armed Hugh with clubs, staves, knives, and scythes. And they sent him off to vanquish the foul friars, which I do know are monks. They waited impatiently at the edge of the town, hoping against high hope that Hugh would return victorious. Suddenly, over the crest of the hill, silhouetted against the afternoon sun, appeared their hero Hugh. Over his shoulder was slung the remains of the hideous man-eating plant. The monks have fled. Their flowers will trouble us no more, cried Hugh. The townspeople cried out with joy, and proclaiming the day a holiday, they feasted and danced until dawn. Momentous occasion! From that day on, a moral was passed on to all the children of the town. Whenever they were tempted to make fun of Hugh and his slow, smelly ways, because remember, he smelled really bad.
The smelliest man in town, yes.
Smelliest man in town. They were reminded, only Hugh can prevent florist friars.
Wow.
The end.
Well, that takes us into our really bad jokes. That reminded me, I don't know if you are familiar with the Mount Angel Abbey up in Mount Angel, Oregon, or not.
I am. Silverton, well, it's by Silverton, but
It's
yeah,
out by
right.
Silverton. It was actually Mount Angel. Yes, it's another town. Yes. And I stayed for dinner and they had fish and chips. Good. And it was very tasty. And so I went back into the kitchen later on and I said, that was the best fish and chips I ever had. But, the chips were above all everything I've ever tasted. That was the best.
Wow.
And the monk that I was talking to, he says, well, that's great, but I'm the fish fryer. The chipmunk is over there.
Moving right along.
Moving right along. So, do you have your book of really bad jokes?
I have my book of really bad jokes. Like, I feel that if they ever transcribe like our pupisodes and everything
Oh God.
and put it into a book, yeah, I mean that would be a pinnacle of book of really bad jokes right there. So for any fur that knows, this is from a book I have called Funny Jokes and Foxy Riddles. It's from 1968. The mother says, "How did you do on your first day of school, Tommy?" Tommy says, "Not so well, I guess. I have to go back tomorrow." And I forgot to also say I don't ever read these beforehand.
Ahead of time,
This is like the first time I've read them.
I, on the other hand, read mine ahead of time, and I pick the ones that I think are really bad.
He purposely picks out the ones that are really bad. So
purposely
let's
pick
just let
out
you know.
really bad jokes. Yeah, he just randomly grabs one. But do you know where snowmen keep their money?
It's in a frosty place, I assume.
No, snowbanks.
Why did I not? Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yep, it stands to reason. On that note, speaking of pepper,
which we weren't, but okay.
which we weren't. The mother, I guess, is the same mother. She says everything is going up. The price of food, toys, everything. I wish something would just go down. The daughter says, "Take a look at my report card." I like the florist friars better, but okay.
Right, yeah, florist friars, right. So do you know what animal is the best sports cheerleader?
Probably not a giraffe.
No, because they're silent. But
Yeah.
a chicken, because they're always egging them on.
Well, yep. That is true. I mean, I cannot deny that. I found out from a cowboy recently.
I see by your outfit that you are a cowboy.
Cowboy.
A cowboy. Yeehaw,
Wow,
little puppy.
I can't get along, little doggy. I can't even get one that's short.
That's a song, apparently. Oh, I can't give a long. I just got okay.
Ah,
I just got that. It took me.
it's a really bad joke section, so I can tell really bad
You
jokes.
can do that.
as
You can do
segues,
that.
yes.
Which means everything we say outside of this segment, like we should be prosecuted, basically. I love how that was just. Oh, I flop. Okay, so this cowboy.
What happened to this
So-
cowboy?
Oh yeah, this cowboy. So this cowboy asked me one time, "Did you find the horse well behaved?" And I said, because apparently now I have a horse, I should say so. Whenever I come to the fence, he let me over first.
What?
So this would be one of those times where we have no idea what's going
I have
on.
no idea what's going on with that one.
So
Whatever
the
he-
cowboy says, "Did you find the horse
Horse
well
well
behaved?"
behaved.
I say, I should say so. Whenever we come to a fence, he let me over first.
Okay. I'm not sure why that's funny.
So for any fur that gets that, let us know
Uh-huh.
what is going on right now.
Right. I heard that you went out with a prune recently because you couldn't find a date.
That is so true. I could not. I tried to get pair up. I tried to pair up, but I got impeached instead. I don't
Yes.
know.
What else you got? That was my last one. I'm gonna end on that one.
Okay, I'll go with this. The snob says, "My ancestors came over on the Mayflower." The slob says, "It's lucky for them. Immigration laws are stricter now." What even? What even? I am so done. I'm just.
That's
I don't
okay.
even know.
Oh, well, that finds us at the end of yet another episode podcast. So I was thinking about our sign-offs, and I don't have a standard sign-off. You have kind of a standard sign-off,
I have things.
but it's a very long sign-off. But, if you go back in time and you look at some of the classic comedians and some of the classic television shows, they always had a signature sign-off. If you look back at George Burns and Gracie Allen, now there's a lot of gray furs that know who those are. The millennial Falcons will not know who Gracie and George Burns are. But they always ended their show with George Burns would say goodnight, Gracie, and Gracie would say goodnight, Gracie.
Is that where that came from? Okay.
Walter Cronkite on the CBS News would end with "That's the way it is."
That
And-
was a really good Cronkite right there, barely.
And, if you think about like Chevy Chase at the end of the Saturday Night Live weekend updates, he would always say, "Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow." It's apparent that we need to come up with a catchphrase. I mean, yours pretty much says, bark, bark, wag, wag at the end, but you always throw things in between at the front.
I do.
Yeah.
Do.
So it's bark, bark, wag, wag. So with that in mind, I'm going to say goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening. It's been great to have you listening to our podcast. Be sure to listen to us as often as you can, whenever you can, wherever you can, whether you're working out, in a car, on a train, on a bus, on a plane, on a boat with a goat, all that stuff.
Exactly.
And help support us if you can through Ko-Fi or through Patreon. If you can, great. We love you. If you can't, we still love you.
Yep.
We love to
Thank
entertain.
you so much for listening. Yep.
Many listeners makes for a fun time, especially in this day and age. You can listen on any podcast platform. We're on Apple, iTunes. We are on Spotify. We are on Alexa. We are on
Amazon podcasts or something.
We are on Amazon. If you were to go to Alexa,
relatively recent. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you said Alexa, play Barely Furcasting featuring Taebyn, it'd pop right up. Thank you all for being with us. We enjoy having you with us. I hope someday we get to hug you again. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Taebyn to say his farewell.
Farewell! And beyond that, I say a few more things, which are, thank you so much for listening. We hope so much that we entertained you. We hope that you enjoyed listening to it and that you're still listening. If you are at this point, hug, 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 bark, bark, wag, wag. Like Barely said, can't wait to get to a con and give some hugs and see you in the fluff. So until next time, hope to bark at you next week. Have a good week, every fur. See you next time, bark, bark.
Barely Furcasting is an Injured Nerves studio production and is found on all major podcast platforms or can be heard directly at barelyfurcasting.com. The opinions expressed here are those of the hosts and their guest, and no commercial compensation was granted. The Furcast is produced, recorded, and directed by me, Barely Normal, aka Mike Began, and is edited by myself and our associate editors Rain Raccoon and Canes. This week's interview was edited by Rain Raccoon. Opening and closing theme music, as well as some interstitial music, was created for Injured Nerves Productions for the use on the podcast by our music associate Reg Day with Damian Tanuki. Other interstitial and background music by Shane Ivers through silvermansound.com and the YouTube free use library. If you would like to send us a message, you can do so via email at barelyfurcasting@gmail.com or on our Telegram chat at BFFTchat, on Twitter, on our Facebook page, or on the barelyfurcasting.com webpage. You can help support the show through donations at ko-fi.com/barelyfurcasting or through Patreon at patreon.com/barelyfurcasting. Thanks for listening. We hope you come back and listen next week.